Hi, my name is Fee Marks and I create very unique paintings that I sell all over the world. I give women a voice, women from history, women from literature, and I tell their stories. I create their portraits, and using a textile style of painting, I envelop them in their times and themes. The current painting I'm working on is a portrait of the Gray sisters, Effie, Sophie and Alice. Here you can see I'm adding all the background using inspiration from Victorian textiles to match the subject that I'm painting in. The textile industry has often been downgraded in the art industry, and I love to use it as it is mainly a female-dominated art form, and I feel it matches the women in my paintings. I collect my inspiration from Pinterest. I search the textiles and then I use them as inspiration in my painting. Effie Gray. This was the start point of my painting. And then there was the film with Effie Gray in it. Her sisters were the models in black of autumn leaves. Here is her youngest sister, Alice, and Sophie, painted by Millet. Effie Gray was the eldest of the children. I then started looking at groups of 3 women, 3 sisters that I could use in my painting. I liked the grouping. I looked carefully at the faces and emotion. Then I started sketching out and building up my layers. I wanted to use the autumn colours, the warmth to reflect the autumn leaves. Then I'd started looking at Victorian textiles. This takes a while to match the textiles to the subject of the painting. Then I can start to build up the patterning, the period, the time and the emotion that evolve around the 3 women. Each one is different. Each one tells its own story, but each one together in the patchwork that makes up our lives. Exactly what a patchwork quilt does. This is what I use to tell the stories of the women in my portraits. Here you can see them being added. Each detail, each bit is telling the story of the 3 sisters, the time they lived in, and the emotions that they felt. Presently, I am looking at different tartans. This is what I'm going to use for the 2 younger girls' dresses. I look at the colours. I like the muted tones because obviously the background is very, very intricate. I want to keep it simple, but also evidence where they came from. These sisters were Scottish, and it's very, very important to the painting. Also, the moon. The moon in my paintings, or the sun, usually also reflects the theme of the painting. So here I have looked at folk art and animals, and I love the idea of the three girls being like three foxes and using, again, the detail of the print. My journey to become a professional artist definitely had lots of twists and turns. When I was a child, I was obsessed with drawing, fashion and history. I remember going to the local library and finding all the books on the young Queen Victoria and anybody else. I was fascinated. My dad was a historian, so I was taken to lots of places of historic interest, and in the gift shop I would find the colouring books of the fashion over the years. I then, when I went to secondary school, had to make a choice. I wasn't allowed to do art and drama. This wasn't possible. Why? Because even then, the arts were a low profile. Just pick one of the arts as a relaxing subject. How angry it made me feel. So I chose drama. I chose to become an actress. I chose to follow my dream of theatre. After spending some time working in theatre, I've struggled to make a living, and with pressure from my parents, I agreed to do a PGCE in teaching. My downfall was teaching. I was too good at it, so I ended up teaching for over 30 years, ended up in management, ended up trying my best for all the children that were in my care. They were my priority. My legacy, as far as I was concerned, was the passion for creativity that I would pass on to my pupils. However, life had a different story for me to tell. After campaigning for years and years to make creativity the heart of the curriculum, I eventually left teaching to carry on that initially through advisory work. Then COVID hit. COVID gave me a chance to explore my own creativity and set up my own business. I started off by painting fairy tales and fairy stories, but gradually it evolved as I told my own version of the fairy tales, with the protagonist, the woman, always taking control. I then started to look at women in Shakespeare, in plays, in books that I read. And gradually this became my theme, my passion, my voice. I started selling my work all over the world, and I still do today. I have high ambitions for my voice and the voice of many women. Why do people connect so strongly with my work? I think this is because myself, like a lot of other women in particular, have felt silenced over the years. Silenced in their marriage, relationships, silenced in their families, silenced in the workplace. And so I, having gone through this very much myself, not only decided to find my voice, but also the voice of women across the centuries, women who deserve to be heard, who have been silenced for so long. Another recent piece I've been working on is of the MacDonald sisters, Frances and Margaret MacDonald, who pioneered the Art Nouveau movement in the Glasgow school with their husbands. Their images are iconic, but not a lot is known about them. Again, my research took me down the Art Nouveau designs, which are completely enthralling, and also into Art Nouveau textiles and prints. I knew this was going to be a challenge, but I so wanted to celebrate these pioneering women. Started out with their sketching and slowly moved on. I use a acrylic gel medium for the texture. I kept the palette light, but also looking at the palette of their work so it matched. I knew I wanted to use their artwork as the inspiration for the background. Here we can see it starting to be added. Almost like each piece is an artwork in itself. I had to think carefully about how I wanted their dresses to be because of such a busy background. So I went for a sort of pastel Art Nouveau print, much lighter than the background, in order that they did not get lost totally within their art. I like to work in quite a large way. I started, like a lot of artists, using small canvases. This canvas is 60 centimetres by 80 centimetres. The main inspiration in my artwork is to give women a voice. If, like me, during your lifetime, you have felt silenced, gagged and unheard, then you relate to these women. When I acknowledged that this had happened to me in my lifetime and I wanted a voice, I realised the women were calling across the centuries, throughout literature and throughout art. And I knew it was my job to tell their stories and let them be heard. Every woman deserves to have a voice. Every woman deserves to be heard.